Okay, moin, welcome back. In this video we will further explore how we can synchronize the development done by multiple developers via Git. In the previous video I have shown you how you do that, this development if the two Git repositories are in the same file system, so you have file system access. And now I would like to show you how you can make this development if you are basically publishing your Git repository in a public Git hosting site like GitHub or GitLab. This exercise basically assumes that you have already a GitHub account and you set up this GitHub account with SSH authentication. If you didn't do that please now, because this you will need in order to follow the exercises here. I will show it step by step how to do that. First, to the generic picture. If you remember the last presentation, we had two repositories, and the two repositories were talking each other and synchronizing changes in order to make sure that parallel development can happen by multiple developers at the same time. Now we will use the same, with the slight difference that publishing our repository will not mean that we are just telling the other contributor the path in the file system to our repository, but on the contrary, we will just push our repository into the cloud, into a good Git hosting service like GitLab or GitHub. We will use GitHub in our case, so somewhere in the cloud. And then basically this upstream repository will be available, the official repository will be available to everyone or to those who we invite on the Git hoster. And then the contributor would just make a fork on the Git hosting service. So basically that making a copy on the same Git hosting service, creating a repository which is still in the cloud. And then basically the contributor will just clone it once. Then here the contributor will have its own version, and then we'll develop exactly as we did in the previous examples. But whenever the contributor would like to publish something, it would push it to the cloud and then basically ask via the cloud, via the Git hoster, the upstream people to incorporate the changes into the main version. And again, also the upstream people would, if they are doing any changes locally, push it, or if they were accepting some changes in the cloud, in the Git hoster, then they would pull it in order to get in their own repository, right? So basically it's very similar to what we had before. However, we have a little bit slight complication by hosting the repositories on a remote site. And basically what I want to do is just to show you that now. So we will do it step by step with the same project as we had in the previous presentation, the previous video. So again, I have created two terminals which will represent the two developers. Now I call it the developer one is Aradi, which is my account name on GitHub, and the other one is called Baradi09, which is my other again an account which I own on GitHub. And we will just do step by step. So let's assume Aradi is the main developer, the upstream developer. So we will just start a project here. So in the this developer, we just make a project. Let's call it hello again. We will just go into the hello and then directory and just initializing it as a Git repository. That to make sure that we can have everything under version control. Again, we are using our editor IDE in order to edit files. We will just create a single file which we will call hello.py. Right, so that is a very simple Python file which just for demonstration purposes just prints hello and doesn't do anything else, and that we will already check in. So basically we will just with git add hello, and then we will just make a git commit, and then we will just call it initial check-in, for example. So now we have a Git repository with an initial check-in as a single commit. Now we would like to publish this repository so other people can basically, based on our repository, based on our project, make contributions. So what we would have to do is we would have to go to the GitHub page. Here I'm called the user Aradi. I'm going to my own GitHub page, and on this GitHub page I'm just creating a new repository here. You have create new, and if you click on that, you can create a new repository. The new repository which I'm creating will be called just hello. That's the name of my repository, and that's good because I don't have such a repository yet, so the name is available. I will skip the description, but usually you should do that. And in order to not to attract too much attention to this silly repository, I will just make it private at the moment, right? And that's basically everything which I need. And then I tell GitHub to create this repository. Now I have a repository in the cloud, so basically on GitHub in this case, and I would like to connect it to my repository here. And actually the good thing is GitHub already tells you how to do that. So basically it says, okay, if you have already an existing repository, which I have, then we should add with git remote add origin this repository, and then maybe rename the default branch to main, which is in our case already main, so we can skip it and just push it to the server. So basically this is exactly what we follow. If I look whether any remote repositories are registered in this repository, not yet. So I will just remove add the register under the name origin, the GitHub repository git at github.com. This is the SSH access, then my username comes and the name of the repository, which is hello.git. If you check it now, then you see that here under the name origin, if we talk about the remote repository and the name origin, then we are meaning the repository which can be accessed by a SSH with that URL. Okay, and then I will just push it, git push -o origin main. So I will just push origin main there, so to origin the main branch, and it has been set up. And now if you have a look on your hello branch, then on GitHub, you see that exactly you have here the Git repository. We have so far not too many commits, but this is the last commit was the initial check-in, which contains the hello.p file. We don't have a readme yet, unfortunately, so it doesn't show anything here. But for example, if you would click on the hello.py file, then you will see the content of the hello.py. So basically our project has landed now on GitHub, and people can basically contribute to this project if they see it and they find it worth to contribute. Now developer 2 comes, Baradi09, who would like to contribute. However, I made this repository private, which is usually if you have some open source project, you might want to make it public. But in this moment, I made it private. So I would have to invite developers in order to collaborate. So this is an additional step, and this is only needed if you made your repository private. If it's public, you don't need this step, but I will just add a collaborator and here say that you haven't invited any collaborator yet, and I will just add the GitHub user Baradi09 to that, and I will invite him just as a collaborator, and then say add Baradi09 to this repository. And then basically here it only sent Baradi09 an email which has a link, and Baradi09 has to click on this email in order to gain access. So this is something I will do now, and I will stop the video for that. Okay, so I have accepted I checked my emails, and I got indeed an invitation. There was a link I had to click on and accept the invitation as user Baradi09, and that means that Baradi09 can have no access to the repository, this private repository of Aradi, so that we can also try it. So what happens if we try to visit it? github.com Aradi hello, I would like to visit, and if I visit it, I see it. So indeed the user Aradi has a repository hello, which is private, but me as user as Baradi09, I can see it because I got an invitation. Now what I will do is basically, whether this is private or not, I will just make a so-called fork of the repository. That means I will make a copy of this repository in my own namespace, and this copy will be just connected to the original repository on GitHub. So yeah, I'm creating a new fork in my namespace Baradi09, and the repository will be further called hello, and I only need the main branch because, as we discussed previously, I will use the main branch in order to keep syncing things with the upstream, with the original repository. And now there I am, basically also in Baradi09 there's a hello repository which I can contribute to, and it's written here that it was forked from Aradi hello, so this repository is connected to the original upstream repository. Okay, perfect. Also here in this window, I can just go back to the, or just not to the settings, but to the original repository. Okay, now I would like to contribute. So on GitHub, I have it already under my name, but now I have to get it locally on my computer in my BRD09 folder. So I will just clone my own repository in GitHub. I will say git clone, git at github.com, and then I have to enter my username and hello.git, which is a repository name. By the way, if you want, they usually GitHub shows you also URL here on the code. If you click on that, GitHub shows you the URL what to use, git@github.com brd09 hello.git. So you can easily get it. Okay, so let's clone it, and it has been cloned into the repository, into the directory hello. And if I just go to hello, then I have exactly on my computer the same hello.py as the main user has it there. Perfect. Now what do I have to do? And the only thing let's check first the remotes. Which remote repository do I know about? Origin is my own one on GitHub, but I would like also to register the original project on GitHub under a different name so that I can pull in changes and sync my main branch with the original one if it's needed. So I will just additionally add a new remote name, which I call it upstream. This is the upstream project, the one I want to contribute to, the official website of the repository of the project. And this was basically under the name of the user Aradi, and that was hello.git, right? And then if I make git remote -v, then you see that I have origin, this is my repository, and upstream is the official project repository where I cannot write, I can only read that repository. Okay, now let's develop features. Let's start with the upstream users, so with Aradi, and Aradi will just create a new branch as we did in the previous video, which we call cleanup, and then this branch it will start just an editor. We have it already. Okay, perfect. And then basically we will just rewrite it, put everything into the main function, so using the main function as a wrapper, right? And then name is equal just the name main, the string main, and if that's the case, the main routine should be invoked, right? This is our first change. We are using the usual thing. We are just in git add -u, and then we are checking it with a short commit message. Let's say wrap script in main. And that's it. And then if you look it up, we have no one commit here. So perfect. Let's just in order to have two commits, make it other development. We will just create a new file and then store it as the readme file, because that's also missing from this project and super important to have a proper readme file. And we just we'll call it hello in the restructured. We are marking it as a chapter header in the restructured text format. And we just make a very quick readme, but it's, of course, you should make a proper readme. We are just here demonstrating things, so make it fast. We are just adding it, the readme.file, and then we are just committing it, add readme file as a log message. And that's it basically. And we have the two things, and now we just wanted to merge it to main. Because this is our project, and we are convinced that this is already good, so we don't want to discuss with anybody. We just merge it to main with the usual strategy, and we will use the no fast forward to merge the cleanup branch. Then the editor pops up. We are getting the usual merge message, which we accept, and then you see that it's the cleanup branch had been merged. We can just start git k here to have a look how the repository looks like, and then we have our main branches now contains basically the cleanup branch merged into the main. So the two commits from the cleanup merged into the main. Okay, if we just delete the cleanup branch because we don't need it anymore. And that's basically it. And if we're reloading it here, then we see that we have the updated main here, and the cleanup branch, the pointer to the cleanup branch has vanished. Now, of course, here this label already shows you that it says remote origin main is still at the initial check-in. What does it mean? That was the last commit which we have uploaded as part of the main main project, and if you or the main branch, sorry. And if you are going basically to the here to the project, and here you are just reloading it, the project page on GitHub, you see that it's still indeed the original thing, already with the original check-in with the hello pi as the only file. Locally, we have already something different, but we didn't publish it yet. And publishing means pushing onto GitHub on the Git hoster, and we were using that push. To that, we are in the main branch. We are pushing the main branch to origin, so basically to the repository which was called origin, and to the main branch on origin. Origin is our GitHub page, right? And we are pushing it to the main branch because our main branch should be exactly the same as the main branch on GitHub. And if you do that, and we are reloading here on GitHub, the website, then you see that basically now the last commit is a different one. The last commit is the branch commit, the third commit. And then you see that now the README file is also here shown. We have a README, and then GitHub shows this README file accordingly. And if you are here again reloading our local Git view, then you see that no remote origin main is exactly the same as the local main. So that means you have uploaded it properly. So this is what happened on the side of upstream, but this is something contributor didn't realize because contributor made its own fork and now starts to develop, right? Just make sure that contributor is on the main branch. We were already, of course, and then we contributor creates a new branch with the name extend and switches to this branch, and then this basically contributor will start an editor. And basically contributor will open hello.py in its original stage, how we left it when we, or how it was when we forked the project, and then we will just here add the word and just extending it, and then we will add it, and then we will check it in, and the commit message should be extend. This commit will extend greeting, and then in order to make a second change, we will just to make it similar to the previous video, we will just here add let's say how are you doing as a question, and save it, and then add it again, and then just committing it with the message make greeting more polite. That will be the log message, right? This commit will make greeting more polite. And then if we look at that with git-k, how our local project looks like, then you see that we have basically the main, the initial check-in, and then we have an extend branch which contains these two commits which are changes. Now we would like to ask developer 1, the upstream developer, to take our changes, but we have first to make sure that we are up to with the status of main on the upstream project, which we are not. In our main we have only an initial check-in, but on the main in the upstream project several things happened already, so we have to synchronize first with the upstream main. So we are switching to main. We are making sure that we are pulling all the changes of the main on upstream, so it's not our repository but the upstream GitHub repository, and pulling it into our main. And for safety reason, to make sure that we didn't change anything unintentionally of main branch, we are specifying the ff only option. Okay, so we are on main, we are pulling in the changes of main, and if we are now revisiting our view, then you see that we have the main here as supposed. It doesn't show our local branch, but again, this is something you can do with a new view where you are allowing for all local branches to be shown. And then you see that we have everything from the main branch of upstream, right? This is also, it says our local main is up to date to remote upstream main, and we have our further changes, and we want to make sure that these further changes which we made are up to date with the current main. That means we will just merge main into our extend branch, because before asking the developers of the upstream project to take our changes. So we are making basically our extend branch being up to date with the main branch here. So how can I do that? This is exactly how we did in the previous video. We are switching to the extend branch, then we are merging main into the extend branch, right? Again, of course, we have conflicts as always, and we can already, we looked at Visual Studio Code, already reloaded the file and set the conflict markers, and we know already from the previous video that the solution of the conflict is just to take the extended greetings and put them inside of the main routine and the main wrapper, and of course remove the conflict markers, and that's it. So we have basically solved the merge conflict, and we are adding the updated file hello.p. If you are asking of the status, then okay, it's we have the new file which came with the merge and the modified file hello.p, and then we are just checking it in, and we already automatically get the right check-in message which says that we are merging branch main into extend, right? Okay, and if you are doing that, and if you are looking at our local version here, it looks quite nice. We have still everything from original main, which looks exactly as in the upstream repository, plus a commit which contains everything from main plus all changes. So basically this commit here, which we would like to integrate it into the upstream project because it contains the current status of the upstream project plus together all changes with a conflict with the necessary conflict resolution, right? So how can I do that? I first, of course, have to publish it. That means I have to push it to my own repository, to origin. I cannot write to upstream repository. I am pushing it to my repository. So I'm saying, okay, I'm now in an extend branch. Please push this extend branch to the origin, to my GitHub repository, into the branch. Create the branch name extend there, and push it there, right? Okay, perfect. And that we have now. So what is the next step? The next step is to ask the developers to incorporate my changes. Now, how can you do that? Actually, it tells you already. You get a link here. If you open that link, you can open a so-called pull request, and this is exactly what we will do now. So we are going to our GitHub page. And then in this browser, I'm just opening it, a so-called pull request. And what do I want to do? I would like to merge from my repository brd09 hello, the branch extend into the main repository of the upstream project, which is rd hello, and extend greetings. We are just giving a name to the pull request, and we are creating a pull request, right? So you can use this link here. Actually, I can show you a trick later how you can make otherwise a pull request. Okay, so we have it, and then we are asking a pull request. brd09, that's the contributor, would like to merge into rd main its extend branch. And here, basically in the pull request, there is shown how many commits it contains, this pull request. So this merge request, these are the 3 commits. One can look at the files which had been changed. So basically one can look it up, what changed in the project, and one can also make a conversation with the developer, so the developer can comment here if they want. And this is exactly what they would do. So the developers would time to time check their project, whether there are any pull requests. So basically in their hello project, they would go to pull request and look up where there is a pull request. Oh, there is indeed some user would like to extend the greetings. They click on the pull request and see that brd09 would like to provide something with these commits, which these changes, and so on and so on. And then one can even review the changes and approve the changes, or make remarks on the individual files. So for example, you could comment on this change. If you don't like something on this change, you could comment, you should be more polite, for example, whatever, right? So basically you can just comment on that, and then basically it's still pending because I started a review, and I could just finish my review and say, okay, whether I could leave some comments, and so on and so on. So basically it's quite flexible, and basically it allows you to communicate with the developers and the contributors, and this is super nice. And then you don't see it very nice because the window is quite small, but you can basically comment or approve, comment on the pull request, just approve the pull request and say no, the pull request is not good, I am requiring some changes. No, I will not require. I said okay, the pull request is okay, I'm approving it. Then basically this doesn't do anything, but if somebody looks up on the GitHub page the pull request and can see that one of the developers already approved the pull request, right? And then I, as a developer who has write access to the repository, I can also merge the pull request, right? So basically I'm one of the upstream developers now, and after the pull request has been discussed and everything was found fine, I can just merge the pull request. And here you can see it will already put as a subject basically the merge pull request number 1 from brd/extend. So basically you can also in the git logs you will have the number of pull requests in GitHub on your project, so you can look it up later if it's necessary. And there is also some additional text. I will just confirm the merge and then merge it as supposed. And with that, basically, I'm finished. If you are looking up now the project, the Hello project, on the upstream in the official repository, then I will see that basically this contains exactly the original project plus the changes of the developer BRD09. Why? Because if you look, for example, at hello.py, then you see that here we have the extended greetings. Okay. And with that, I'm almost finished. Of course, it would be good because my main branch changed on GitHub. Then even the upstream developer should update its local copy from GitHub. So basically we are here in the main branch and we would say git pull upstream. Sorry, here it's called origin and main, right? So I'm just pulling and just for safety reason, --ff only. I'm just pulling origin main into my local folder. So if I'm now looking up it's the other one, it's a little bit many windows. I'm just looking up here the local repository of upstream 1. Then you see here I have the entire picture, and I have also here the merge pull request from the GitHub server. And exactly this is the same what BRD09 the contributor should do. So basically also the contributor switches to its main branch and then pulls --ff only for safety reasons upstream's main. So basically the changes from upstream main. And if you do that, and if you're reloading the contributors view, then you see that this is exactly the same, right? So basically it's the same structure. We don't need extend anymore because it has been incorporated into main. So I will delete the branch extend locally, and I will also delete delete origin extend. So basically I will also on my GitHub side remove the extend folder, the extend branch, just because we don't need it anymore, so it should not hang around. And if I now reload it, then you see that it looks quite good. All these remote and local branches have been removed. The only thing is, which I didn't do yet, I didn't push the current status of my main branch, which is here locally, onto my GitHub. It's not strictly necessary, but it's a good practice. So I would also push my main into the origin, so into my GitHub site. And this is basically it. If I reload it, then you see then everything is fine. My local main branch, the main branch on my GitHub site, and the main branch of the upstream project, so the official main branch, they are on the same commit, and I have everything which has been incorporated so far, equivalent to how is in the original project. And basically with that, we finished one cycle. Now the development can start again. So again, upstream can also add new features. Also contributors can add new features. And actually, if the upstream developer are adding new features, they can also make a pull request, which is a quite good practice, and discuss with other upstream developers the pull requests. Okay, now going back to the slides, I would like just to show you at the end One more, the summary for the contributors workflow, how you do. So basically you are switching to main, you are just pulling things from upstream main to make sure that your main branch is up to date with the project. Then you are making a switch, so you are making basically a new branch from the main branch you develop locally. You can also synchronize via merging main with the upstream project if the upstream project goes forward in the meantime. Once you are finished, you are pushing your branch to your GitHub site. You are making a pull request on the GitHub site. You are just basically waiting for the discussion or discussing with the developers what to do. Once your changes had been incorporated into the main branch of the official project, then again, the only thing you do is that you switch to main and you are just fetching the upstream main to your local main just to make sure that you are again incorporating the latest changes into your main branch. So you make sure that your main branch is always in the same state as the upstream main branch. And then the only thing you need is just delete your branch locally, which had been already incorporated, and to delete your branch also remotely on the GitHub site. And that's it basically. With that, the workflow, this is the usual contributor workflow to a project. Basically, at the very end of our GitHub discussions and GitHub videos, I would just to have make a few random notes or random comments. The one I did that here exactly. I was making the project private, and then I had to invite a contributor in order to access the repository. Actually, with that, the contributor would have also have the rights. So you should be very careful with that. You should only invite people to your private repository where you don't mind if they can also write into that repository. But usually, if you are developing an open source project and you want to contribution from third parties, then of course you would make your project public. If the project is very small, there's only one or two developers, then you can basically use just one repository and everybody has right access to that. So it's okay, then it's you can synchronize it and everybody works in its own feature branch, then it's fine. But that's not the usual way of interacting, especially not for larger projects. GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, they are not just offering Git hosting, but also additional things like continuous integration. That means automatic testing, code checking, and so on and so on. Just check their documentation. That's too complex just so that I show you here. And finally, we were using this --ff only option all the time when we were pulling from main. And actually, it's a very good practice to make sure that if you just write git pull, it should always automatically assume that the -ff only feature or option had been set. And this is very easy to achieve. You are just editing your git config tile in your home folder. And then in the pull section, you are just setting ff equal only. And that would make sure that whenever you write git pull, it would be automatically assumed that it's git pull --ff only, so you don't have to write it all the time and type it in all the time. And my last comment is that, which I also made in a previous video, that in order to keep up to date with the changes on the upstream project while we are developing our feature, we were using the merging strategy. So we were merging the changes from upstream main into our feature branch, right? So we were transporting it into our, or pulling it into our own main branch, and then we were merging this main branch into the feature branch. This is one way to keep with the feature branch up to date with the changes on main. And the other one, as I was already mentioned in the other video, is the so-called rebasing. I can rebase my feature branch to onto the actual status of main. It can be sometimes more complicated, sometimes less complicated, so it's less straightforward than simple merging. The good thing is that it allows for so-called linear history, and some projects even require that. So please make sure when you contribute to a project, check the project's Git workflow and try to find out what they prefer, whether they prefer merging for the feature branches in order to keep up to date with the changes on the main of the upstream project, or whether they prefer rebasing. If it's rebasing, then make sure that you understand how to do that. And otherwise, here you have just a few readings. Again, I can just only emphasize what I did already in the previous video. Just look up the documentations of the Git hosting size. So basically, GitHub has a nice quick start guide. GitLab, Bitbucket, they have all Git guides, and they are very well written and very easy to understand. And if you are joining the project, basically, like check the project's Git workflow. At some point, usually every project mentions, okay, what is their preferred Git workflow for them. And with that, we finish basically in this course all the Git features I wanted to show you. Consult the documentation, and for all, just use Git regularly so that you become a Git expert, because it's a very, very important tool for program developer.